Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR Official 24 channel. Billy is having a time because of Jill's problems. The position of Chancellor is now available. Billy Abbott made a choice. He told Kane Ashby that they're going to do something with Chancellor. This is what Billy wants because he is trying to hurt Newman Enterprises. Then something unexpected happened. Sally Spectra made a phone call that she was not supposed to make. She wanted to tell Jill Abbott about what Billy said to Kane Ashby. Instead, she talked to her brother Snapper Foster. Sally found out that Jill is having some health issues with her heart again. This is bad news for Jill. Billy is still dealing with the fallout from Jill's crisis. People are worried that Jess Walton's character on The Young and the Restless is going to die. Jess Walton has been on The Young and the Restless since 1987. She is an actor and has won 2 Emmy Awards. Jess Walton is not the person to play Jill. The scenes with Jess Walton and the late Gene Cooper are still really good after all these years. Jess Walton and Gene Cooper worked well together. They had a connection that people could see on television. The Young and the Restless fans really loved watching them. Jess Walton and Gene Cooper made their characters come alive. The Young and the Restless has been on the air since 1973. Jess Walton has been a part of the show for a long time. Fans of The Young and the Restless do not want to see Jess Walton's character die. They want to keep watching Jess Walton on the show. Jess Walton is an actress and people love her. She has been playing the character for a long time. The Young and the Restless would not be the same without Jess Walton. So Jill has a heart issue. Billy thinks that getting Chancellor back would be a good way to remember the past. Then Sally tells him something and this might stop him from doing what he wants, or he might want to wait for a bit. Kane Ashby will also be affected by what the doctor says about Jill. When Kane finds out about Jill's update, it will affect him. We know that Jill used to think of Kane as family, and she thought Billy was his brother. Then we all found out that was not true, and even though that happened, Jill and Kane are still close, which bothers Billy. Jill's heart issue is a deal, and it will affect Kane too, because Jill cares about him, and he cares about her. Billy does not like that Jill and Kane are so close, and this has caused problems for him. Thompson's character talked to Kane about something that is bothering him. Kane thinks the Chancellor offer is an attempt to make things right. Phyllis Summers does not think Billy should get this offer because she thinks he does not deserve it. Kane knows Billy was really hurt when Jill sold Chancellor to Victor Newman. He thinks this was not fair, and something needs to be done to fix it. Kane and Billy both care about Jill. If Walton shows up in person or on a video call, Kane and Billy might have to deal with people who do not agree with their decision. This could even stop their agreement from happening. Nikki Newman is the person who should be in charge of Chancellor. What would Catherine want to happen? Catherine would probably want Nikki Newman to stay as the head of Chancellor. This is something that Billy thinks about. He thinks he knows what Catherine would want. In his mind, Billy believes that Catherine, the Grand Dame, would agree with what he is doing. He thinks she would want him to fix the company that she got after her husband died in a car accident a time ago in the 1970s. This accident happened when Catherine was driving. She wanted to kill them both because her husband wanted to be with Jill instead of her. Everyone who watched Cooper's indelible career knows that Catherine wouldn't want family strife. Jill doesn't want or need that either at this point in her life. So, fans can anticipate her calling for a peaceful and lasting resolution between her son and Kane, whom she remains fond of. Billy Abbott is brought to his knees by a revelation he never saw coming, one that redefines his relationship with Jill, reshapes the Abbott legacy, and sends shockwaves through every corner of the canvas, because what begins as a solemn, restrained gathering quickly spirals into raw chaos when Billy, already on edge from months of unresolved tension, guilt, and unspoken resentment, opens Jill's will and realizes that this is not just a legal document but a final, calculated message from a woman who knew her son better than anyone else ever could, a woman who anticipated his reactions, his self-destructive tendencies, his hunger for approval, and his deep-rooted fear of never being enough. The room is quiet at first, painfully quiet, with Jack watching his brother closely, Lily standing nearby unsure whether to offer comfort or distance, and the air thick with the weight of Jill's presence even in absence. But the moment Billy's eyes land on a particular passage, everything changes. because his hands begin to shake, his breathing becomes shallow, and suddenly the cocky, defiant, reckless Billy Abbott collapses into a man utterly undone, his voice breaking as he cries out in tears, shocking everyone present, as he chokes on sobs and demands to know why Jill would do this to him, why she would wait until now to reveal the truth she buried for decades. According to Y&R spoilers, Jill's will contains a secret clause, one that has nothing to do with money or property, and everything to do with identity, regret, and redemption. Because Jill admits that she made a choice years ago that altered the course of Billy's life forever, a choice she justified at the time as protection but now recognizes as manipulation, and as Billy reads her words aloud through tears, it becomes horrifyingly clear that Jill interfered in a critical moment of his youth, steering him away from someone who could have grounded him, sabotaging an opportunity that might have given him stability, all because she was afraid of losing control over him. The revelation hits Billy like a punch to the gut, because it reframes every failure, every spiral, every reckless decision he's made since, and he screams that his life was never truly his own, that Jill shaped him into the very mess she later criticized, and the irony is almost unbearable, especially when Jack steps in, torn between defending their mother's intentions and acknowledging the very real damage she caused, while Lily watches Billy unravel and realizes that this secret explains so much about the man she loves, including his fear of abandonment and his obsession with proving himself. But the will doesn't stop there, because Jill leaves Billy one final, devastating instruction, asking him to forgive her not for her sake, but for his own, urging him to break the cycle of self-destruction that has defined the Abbott men for generations, and that plea is what finally breaks him completely, as Billy collapses into a chair, sobbing openly, confessing that all he ever wanted was for Jill to see him as worthy, not as a problem to be fixed or controlled, and the emotional fallout ripples outward immediately, with Jack questioning his own complicity, Lily struggling with whether love is enough to help Billy heal, and Victor Newman, always lurking in the background, seeing an opportunity in Billy's vulnerability that could be exploited for business or revenge. Spoilers tease that this secret will ignite old rivalries and create new alliances, as Billy's grief transforms into a dangerous mix of rage and clarity, pushing him to make bold, potentially destructive choices at Chancellor Winters and beyond, choices driven by a desperate need to reclaim agency over his life, while at the same time forcing him to confront the terrifying possibility that if Jill was right about one thing, it's that he has been his own worst enemy. Meanwhile, whispers spread through Genoa City about what exactly Jill did and why she waited until her will to confess, with some characters sympathizing with her fear as a mother and others condemning her manipulation, setting the stage for explosive confrontations and emotional reckonings, especially as Billy begins to wonder what other truths were kept from him and whether the people closest to him are still hiding things for his own good. In classic Y&R fashion, the storyline weaves past and present together, using Jill's voice from beyond the grave to force Billy into a reckoning he can no longer avoid, and as he wipes his tears and looks up with a haunted expression, spoilers hint that this moment will mark a turning point, either the beginning of Billy's true redemption or the spark that sends him down his darkest path yet, because grief has a way of sharpening resolve as much as it shatters hearts. And Jill's final secret may have just set Billy Abbott on a collision course with destiny itself, leaving fans breathless, devastated, and desperate to know whether this broken son can finally rise above the legacy that was written for him long before he ever had a say. As the shock of Jill's words continues to echo through the room, Billy's breakdown deepens into something far more dangerous than grief, because once the initial wave of tears subsides, what's left behind is a cold, hollow fury that scares even Jack, who has seen his brother spiral more times than he can count, yet has never witnessed this particular mix of devastation and awakening. A moment where Billy finally realizes that the chaos of his life was not merely the result of bad choices or impulsive instincts, but a carefully nudged domino effect set in motion by the one person who claimed to love him unconditionally. The will, as it turns out, is layered, almost cruelly so, because Jill didn't just confess her secret. She explained it in painstaking detail, describing how she intervened behind the scenes to end a relationship Billy had clung to during one of the few periods in his youth when he felt truly seen, truly balanced, revealing that she leveraged her influence, her money, and her power to make sure that person walked away believing Billy had betrayed them. And as Billy reads this passage aloud, his voice cracks not from sadness, but from the unbearable realization that a pivotal fork in the road was never his to choose, that the loneliness which haunted him for years afterward was artificially engineered by the very woman who later scolded him for being lost. Lily, barely able to contain her emotions, steps closer, her eyes filling with tears as she finally understands why Billy has always flinched at the idea of permanence, why he sabotages happiness the moment it feels real. And when Billy looks up at her, there's a terrifying vulnerability there, a silent question asking whether she, too, will someday decide she knows what's best for him and pull the rug out from under his feet. Jack tries to intervene, insisting that Jill acted out of fear, that she believed she was saving Billy from heartbreak or failure, but Billy explodes, shouting that love without trust is control, that protection without consent is betrayal, and that Jill robbed him of the chance to fail or succeed on his own terms, a rant that leaves the room stunned, because for once, Billy's anger is precise, articulate, and devastatingly justified. Y&R spoilers hint that this moment becomes a catalyst for long-buried tensions between the Abbott brothers, as Jack is forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that he benefited from Jill's favoritism, while Billy bore the brunt of her interference, a realization that fractures their fragile truce and sets the stage for a reckoning years in the making. Meanwhile, word of Jill's will begins to spread like wildfire through Genoa City, with whispers reaching Victor Newman, who immediately recognizes the strategic implications of Billy's emotional unraveling, because a wounded Billy is unpredictable, and unpredictability is either a liability or a weapon, depending on who gets to him first. Victor, ever the puppet master, quietly instructs his inner circle to keep tabs on Billy, sensing that grief of this magnitude could drive him to burn bridges, topple alliances, and make impulsive moves that could destabilize Chancellor Winters and shift the balance of power overnight. Back at the Abbott mansion, the will delivers yet another blow, revealing that Jill intentionally structured her estate in a way that forces Billy and Jack to work together on a long-term philanthropic project, one aimed at rehabilitating at-risk youth, a bitter irony that doesn't escape Billy, who laughs hollowly as he reads Jill's words about guiding lost boys before they destroy themselves, interpreting it as one final attempt to fix him from beyond the grave. And yet, beneath the sarcasm, there's a flicker of something else, painful recognition that Jill saw his potential even as she undermined his autonomy. The emotional toll becomes too much, and Billy storms out, leaving Lily torn between chasing after him and staying behind to process the fallout with Jack, who admits in a rare moment of humility that he doesn't know how to help his brother this time, because the enemy Billy is fighting isn't Victor, or Adam, or corporate politics, but a ghost with a mother's voice and a lifetime of influence. Alone, Billy spirals through Genoa City, revisiting places tied to his past, haunted by what-ifs that now feel less hypothetical and more stolen, and spoilers tease that he reaches out to someone unexpected, someone connected to the relationship Jill destroyed, reopening a wound that could either bring closure or ignite a new emotional catastrophe. As night falls, Billy's grief morphs into resolve, and he begins to articulate a dangerous plan. Not revenge against Jill, because she's beyond reach, but against the systems and people who continue to decide his fate without asking him. A mindset that puts him on a collision course with Victor, Jack, and even Lily, who may soon have to choose between standing by Billy or protecting herself from the fallout of his crusade. Jill's secret, meanwhile, continues to reverberate beyond Billy's inner circle, prompting other characters to re-examine their own parental choices, with Nikki quietly questioning whether her own attempts to shield her children cross similar lines, and Phyllis, ever opportunistic, filing away the knowledge that emotional leverage over Billy could be just as powerful as corporate intel. Y&R spoilers strongly suggest that the true twist hasn't even landed yet, because buried within the legal language of the will is a final enigma, an unopened letter addressed solely to Billy, to be delivered weeks after the reading, ensuring that just as he begins to regain his footing, another truth will surface, one that could either shatter what remains of his trust or finally give him the clarity Jill denied him in life. As Billy stands alone on the patio, tears drying on his face and rage hardening into determination, he whispers that he will no longer live a life written by someone else, unaware that this vow marks the beginning of a high-stakes arc that could redefine him forever, because in Genoa City, secrets don't just reveal the past, they rewrite the future, and Jill's final confession may have lit a fuse that will burn through families, empires, and hearts long after her voice has faded, leaving fans on the edge of their seats, torn between heartbreak and anticipation, desperate to see whether Billy Abbott will finally claim his own destiny or be consumed by the truth that set him free. The days following the reading of Jill's will feel surreal for Billy, as if Genoa City itself has shifted slightly off its axis, every familiar street and boardroom now echoing with her voice and her choices, because no matter where he goes, he can't escape the knowledge that so many turning points in his life were quietly engineered long before he ever realized he was standing at a crossroads. Sleep becomes elusive, haunted by fragmented memories that now replay with cruel new context moments. Where he once blamed himself for things falling apart, suddenly glowing with the uncomfortable truth that someone else had their hand on the wheel, and this slow-burning realization eats away at him more painfully than the initial shock ever did, because anger is easier to survive than the steady drip of understanding. Lily notices the change almost immediately, sensing that Billy isn't just grieving anymore but rebuilding himself from the inside out, and it terrifies her, because there's a sharp focus in his eyes now, a calm that feels far more dangerous than his usual recklessness, and when she gently asks him what he's planning, he tells her the truth in a way that chills her. He doesn't know yet, but whatever it is, it will finally be his decision. At Chancellor Winter's, Billy throws himself into work with obsessive intensity, challenging long-standing strategies, questioning partnerships that once felt untouchable, and refusing to defer to anyone for the sake of peace. A shift that sends ripples through the company and puts him at odds with Lily professionally as well as personally, because while she understands his need to reclaim control, she fears he's swinging too far in the opposite direction, mistaking autonomy for isolation. Jack, meanwhile, struggles under the weight of guilt, replaying moments where he dismissed Billy's resentment as immaturity, now realizing that his brother's pain had roots he never bothered to examine, and in a quiet, emotionally charged scene, Jack finally admits that he doesn't know how to make things right, offering not solutions but accountability, which almost breaks Billy all over again, because part of him has always wanted Jack to acknowledge that he wasn't imagining the imbalance in their family, that he wasn't just the screw-up by nature. Y&R spoilers tease that this fragile moment of honesty becomes a turning point for the brothers. Not a neat reconciliation, but a raw reset, one where they agree to stop protecting each other from uncomfortable truths, even if it means more conflict in the short term. Elsewhere, Victor's interest in Billy sharpens, as he recognizes that a man redefining himself is either about to become unstoppable or self-destructive, and Victor quietly positions himself as an obstacle rather than an ally, testing Billy with subtle power plays designed to provoke him into overreacting, only to be surprised when Billy responds with restraint, signaling that Jill's final lesson may have unintentionally forged a more formidable opponent. The unopened letter from Jill looms like a ticking clock, its existence gnawing at Billy's resolve, because he knows another revelation is coming, and the anticipation is almost worse than the truth already revealed, forcing him to confront whether he's truly ready to hear everything she withheld. When the letter finally arrives, Billy doesn't open it right away, choosing instead to sit alone and decide who he wants to be before Jill's voice reaches him one last time, a quiet but powerful moment that underscores just how far he's come since that tear-soaked reading. When he does read it, the contents are softer but no less devastating, with Jill acknowledging that her greatest fear was not losing Billy to someone else, but losing relevance in his life, admitting that control felt safer than trust, and that by the time she understood the damage she'd done, she didn't know how to undo it without losing him entirely. This confession doesn't absolve her, but it gives Billy something he didn't expect: clarity. And as he folds the letter and exhales, there's a sense that the past has finally stopped bleeding into the present. Lily, reading his face afterward, realizes that the